Hello and welcome to the Mystic Cast, where you join Jack Stafford and Deborah Littleboy, members of the Aetherius Society, as we break down the barriers between religion, science, metaphysics, philosophy, and mysticism, all of which are only really aspects of the self-same quest for truth. Please note, this is an independent program, not produced or fact-checked by the Aetherius Society. Today, our guest is Michael Pallamary. Hello, Mateo. How are you doing?
Good. Michael's my brother. I'm Matthew, but Mateo's good.
Mateo, it will be.
Yes, sir.
So, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
Where are you? You're not in the jungle.
Yeah, I've been down there quite a bit. Behind me is my tambo, where I spend most of my time when I go. And my background isn't great, so that's a better background than what's behind me for real. In person.
I heard you just did was it your 13th ayahuasca retreat? Something like that?
Yes, sir. It's always challenging. And it had been 7 years since I had been down there. I went down the last time in 2015 with my primary mentor, and he passed away last year. So it was his last year, and he wanted me to be there. He honored me to be there. So I was honored to be there.
And how was it this time?
Very deep, very dark. Sometimes you got to go to the dark. And I ended up uncovering some deep wounds. And I had an interesting time because I trained physically in the gym to be in good shape to go down there. And 5 minutes into my trip, I blew out my knee. But my friends took care of me. They carried me up. One guy actually carried me up a muddy embankment on his back. And they took care of me. So
when Deborah was researching you, she used the term Indiana Jones quite a lot.
Oh, yeah.
That's what springs to mind.
Yeah. It's always an adventure.
Yeah.
Never ends.
All right. So we could talk to you about a lot of things. You've written a lot of books. You're a very interesting guy. Studied a lot of things. But what we want to focus on today is, apart from the connections between your experiences and your beliefs and those in the Aetherius Society, is also the question, how can we prepare for the next step, Ascension?
Okay, that's a big question. So when I go on too long, you can just pull me in, yank on the leash and pull me in.
The stage is yours, sir.
I have a life motto of unlimited possibilities with no expectations. And I'm often quoted as saying, we'll see how the mystery unfolds, because you never know. But in order to survive, adaptability is the key to survival and flexibility. So I like to stay open, and I've discovered on my path that even though things may seem to be going wrong at the time with specific things, in the end, if I have patience and wait and stay into acceptance and gratitude, then as my grandfather used to say, it'll all come out in the wash. So for me, the two biggest things going forward, I think, are acceptance and gratitude, because we are in the midst of forces that are much bigger than we are. And in my humble opinion, if we're on the path, we'll be guided to where we do. And if we surrender to those bigger forces and understand how they work, I like to think of it as cosmic forces, then you're going with the flow. And it's much easier to flow with the river, and it's working in your favor, as opposed to swimming upstream, so to speak, and trying to fight the current. So being open in acceptance and in gratitude, I think, is the path.
Well, that's a shorter answer than I was expecting.
Sometimes I go, sometimes I don't. I can go on more.
Yeah,
I have a big on button.
Okay. What did you think of that, Deborah? Did that grab you?
I would just like to jump in, if you like, and go on a side stream with you. I want you to explain what you did in Kundalini Yoga, because you said to me that you'd studied that, and that's something that our master was a master of Kundalini, and he actually advised us not to take that route, because it could be extremely dangerous, and certainly not take that route unless you had a master by your shoulder, if you like, taking you along there. So we were told, and the messages that came through, the best way and the safest way that we could get to the step of not having to come back to Earth anymore was by karma yoga. And that's so by service to others and being grateful to be able to serve, so that we're all going back the same place. And so we help each other along the way. And then the natural force of Kundalini would raise naturally and we would not be in any danger. But of course, it doesn't suit everybody, because some people have got like a more of a pioneering spirit, if you like. And I think that may be, I think without trying to put a label on your chest, I think that you might own up to that one. So I'd be interested to hear about your experiences on the Kundalini route.
Yeah, so that was in my younger days, and I studied very intensely from 1977, 1978. And I was going to an ashram here in San Diego, and it was with a group. They were called the 3HO, Healthy, Happy, and Holy. And they had manuals, and I was getting up every morning. I was going and doing it with the group at the ashram there from like 4 to 7 every morning for some time. But I was young. I was in my early 20s. And so I was getting up that early in the morning. I was going and doing the Kundalini. Then I would go to work all day. And then I was in a rock and roll band. So I would go to rehearsals at night. And so I was burning the candle at both ends. And I did that for a number of months until I totally burned myself out. And I exhausted myself. So I dropped back on all of my practices. Prior to that, I had been studying it. Like I probably studied it for 2 or 3 years, but I got really intense with that last part. It was in 1978. And I realized I couldn't do everything. And I was going through a lot of personal changes in my life. I have a tendency to go overboard and get caught up. I just overdo things, and something I'm still working on, but I'm getting better at it now. But it taught me a lot. And I've always had this, for lack of better words, I kind of call it a kamikaze attitude, which ultimately led me to my path with the plants. And that path is certainly not for everybody. It's certainly fraught with danger. It's part of the adventure. But it's worked for me because I'm stubborn. I'm hard-headed. And it's what I needed to get to where I needed. And it's interesting what you said there, Deborah, because in the end, I found out that being of service is the greatest of all. And when I read somewhere that, shamanism is ultimately about being of service, back when I was younger, I was like, oh man, are you kidding me? I gotta serve. And now it's an honor. And I always tell people, I'm happy to be of service. And an interesting thing happened to me, because to me, there's always lessons. And an interesting happened to me in the jungle, because when I got into Lima after flying all night with the damaged knee and all that, and all of my friends were like, you're not carrying anything. You're not doing anything. We're going to take care of you. You're not touching anything. And it's always been hard for me to accept any help from anybody or ask for any help. So I was kind of arguing with them, not in a big way, but, we were laughing, and they were, giving me a lot of static about it. And then one of them came up and did something to me. And then he said to me, hey, it was spontaneous. He says, I'm happy to be of service. And I was taken aback, because I heard my words coming out of his mouth. And I thought, wow, what a reflection. So it gets back to the whole karma part of it. Which I firmly believe in, and it's been proven to me over and over again in my life on my path. So it took me a while to get there, but I'll be 68 later this year. So, I'm a little slow, but 40 something years, I'm starting to wake up. There's hope.
Thank you.
Sure.
Dr. King had the same attitude. He was our founder, and he discovered yoga in the 1940s, it must have been. And he did about 8 hours practice every day for 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah, until he was able to erase Kundalini consciously in its full all the way through the Upshushumna, through all the chakras.
Yeah. I read much of Yogananda's work, Paramahansa Yogananda there. And where I was living here close to San Diego, there's the Self-Realization Fellowship where he stayed in Encinitas. I spent a lot of time in those gardens. And, I toured the grounds and got to go through the houses where he lived and worked and all of that stuff. And I've always resonated with that. All
You're frozen a little bit there.
of this stuff for me personally resonates with everything has its roots in shamanism all the way back to the beginning. And the first time somebody had enough conscious awareness to just look up at the stars and wonder, what does it all mean and why am I here, was sort of the beginning of it. And I see elements of shamanism in all systems of belief, particularly with yogic ones and Buddhism. They're very close, but it's in all of them one way or another.
There's a fantastic description of cosmic consciousness in Yogananda's book, Autobiography of a Yogi. But there's a even better one in the 9 Freedoms by Dr. King, where he describes what it feels like, and to have an experience which you can't put into words.
Yes, that's one of my favorite things, is the word ineffable. And being a writer, I've struggled all these years, all of my life, to take those experiences that are far beyond words and try to put them into, articulate them in ways that people who don't maybe necessarily get to have that direct experience to maybe get a sense of it or live vicariously through me. And I'm told I'm getting pretty good at it. I've been at it for like almost 45 years, so I'm hoping to have some growth there.
Yeah. I've heard you talk about how it's it's the left and the right brain, how you shut down the right brain, have a left brain experience like when you're dreaming, but then trying to explain that to the right brain in a language it can, by definition, can't understand is
exactly.
Impossible.
Yeah. When you first start to deal with it, it seems like a totally alien language, and in some respects it is, because it's very complex. It's like sort of intuitional, emotional, conceptual, as opposed to straight up logic. And in my humble opinion, intuition is far superior to logic. We need more of it in the world. It ties in with the feminine, which has been so repressed for so long. So it's a big part of it for me.
Just for a second, Mateo, and ask another question. Do you mind, Jack? I know you said I had.
You're always interrupting me.
I'm not very good at.
I was in a beautiful flow there.
How do you know whether it's your intuition or whether you've just made it up?
It's a good question.
Okay,
Because
so
personally, for me, because just so that I can explain I've tried to explain where I'm coming from, I quite often follow my intuition to find out it's just wishful thinking.
So, okay, you ready for me? Okay. I love it. So for me, personally, it has to do with the quality of the energy that you are intuiting or feeling. Now, in my case, and by the way, everything I say is the truth in my universe. Doesn't have to be for everybody else. Everything I write and everything I say, I consider to be an offering. People can take it or leave it. I'm not trying to force my point of view. This is just my perspective from my experience. So, for me, I had no feminine for most of my life. I grew up in a tough neighborhood, street fighting, lots of violence, all those things. And I went for 30 years without ever crying. And it wasn't like, I'm not going to cry. It just was nothing there. And after I started working with the plant medicines, particularly ayahuasca, which is, archetypally speaking, ayahuasca is considered to be the dark feminine. And it's in the jungle, it's considered to be the mother of all the other plants. So it's considered mother in a big way, and sort of in a cosmic sense. So after having a major breakthrough in my first 10-day plant diet, and by the way, the dieta is ayahuasca, but there's also a number of other plants that you work with during that time, and it's a very restricted diet and all that. But after I had that breakthrough, I went through a period of getting very emotional, and I was bawling my eyes out over the smallest things. And I noticed that my intuition shot up to the ceiling because it was pretty much non-existent before. So I get a sense there's wishful thinking, but there's, to me, I've really worked on developing, divining, and interpreting energies. In shamanism, everything is energy. When they talk about the spirit of the plants in the jungle, you could say the spirit of the plants and the spirits, but you can also interchange the word spirit and energy. It's the same thing. If I suddenly get mad and throw a temper tantrum, you could say I was possessed by the spirit of anger. Anybody like that. So I start to learn over time how to interpret the feeling of the energy. And I found sometimes when I feel an impulse, and it may be wishful thinking, one of the things I've been training myself to learn to do is to keep my mouth shut and listen for a while. And sometimes not doing anything for a while is the best thing. And then it reveals itself to me. And it has to do with the quality of the energy. So the path, my path, in my humble opinion, the path back home, so to speak, is from the head to the heart. And you go from being primarily head-centered, and generally, these are generalizations, but generally more speaking with males than females. Generally speaking, females are more in touch with their intuition and their emotions and feelings, where men are like, I'm tough, that's not going to hurt me, that kind of thing. But as I've come more and more to notice the difference in the energies and where they come from, I've noticed that for me, the path home is through the heart. So when I know it's coming from the heart, then I know and I understand how the energy feels. Then I know that that's the beacon that's going to bring me to where I need to go. And it's a constant state of refinement. And I'm getting better and better at it as I get older. I have this sort of little, I don't know if I want to call it a fantasy, but sometimes I feel like I'm getting better and better and better. And right with about the time when I figure it all out is when I'll check out and leave the planet. One of those little ironies, like physically you get older and the aging things creep in. And if you're doing your work, you may get smarter. But of course, the smarter you get, and then you lose more and more sort of the physical, so to speak. So to me, the path is from the head to the heart. And when it's heart-centered and I understand it, then it has yet to fail me. The other thing that's happened to me more and more over time is when I have major synchronicities, then synchronicities indicate to me that I'm on the right path. And I know then it's like confirmation from the universe that, okay, you're on the right path, you're going it. And, there's the old cliched expression that the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? And there is some truth to that. But for me, knowing what it feels like in my heart and knowing the feeling, and when it comes to me, I'll know because I know how it feels. And this has come about over a long period of time and a lot of work. And another thing I always like to tell people is you have to experience the light and the dark. If people go wrong, I just want to see the light, I just want to embrace the light, I just want a beacon of light, they're missing out. Because to me, and this gets back to the whole thing about transcendence. I forget the expression you just told me about. Ascension. Ascension for me is transcendence, and transcendence is overcoming opposites. And I always like to say, if you go far enough right, you're going to end up left. And if you go far enough left, you're going to end up right. Whether it's political or any other thing, it goes like that for me. And what swirls around outside in the extremes are strong energies each way. But what happens in the eye of the storm? Nothing. The path to peace, for me, is in the center. And the lighter the light, the darker the dark, the darker the dark, the lighter the light. They're complementary polarities, but it's in the middle. And the analogy I love to use is a pendulum. When a pendulum swings up in one direction, when it gets to the very peak on one side, it gets momentarily weightless. It loses its energy. When it swings back to the middle, right down in the middle is where the strongest, most powerful energy is. And of course, it swings the other way and goes through that to the other extreme. So I'm always looking to go toward the center. And I find many things in life, many of the mysteries in life are paradoxes, which is another one of my favorite words. If you resolve a paradox, then you're going to find something there. There's a gift. And I always like to say that the darkness always holds a gift. When you explore the darkness and you go into the darkness, there's a gift, and it's deeply embedded within our culture. The whole myth of Saint George and the dragon, right? He faces the dragon, and the dragon is guarding the cave with the beautiful maiden and all the gold and the gems and the jewels, right? Because he faced it and he faced the darkness, he got the reward. And I think that's a very powerful metaphor for us, especially in this day and age when there's so much more chaos and darkness that's going on all around us. I can continue, but yeah.
No, it's inspired so many questions.
That fits so well in the path home that we were given by a cosmic master which we call Marge Sector 6. And he says that there are 9 steps to get us to the sun, to be Lord, to actually be entities on the sun. But the first step, and it's not in any particular order, but the first step that's detailed is bravery.
Mm-hmm.
And when I've gone into that and I've thought about it, actually it's the first step, but it's also the second, the third, the fourth, it's in every single thing that we've got, because we've got, as I say, first step, which is bravery. Second is love, and the third is service. But to love, you have to be brave. To serve, you have to be brave. To get to enlightenment, which is the next one, there's so many obstacles and dark and frightening monsters on that road. You have to be brave. Otherwise, otherwise you're going to U-turn it, and you're going to miss out on that route. So, I'm lining up with you there, that you have to really take that attitude that you have to be brave. You have to go into the darkness, because, well, otherwise you won't get anywhere.
I agree. This ties in what you just said about the heart and all that. In ancient, you guys may know this, maybe more for the benefit of your audience, but in ancient Egyptian thought and ancient shamanic thought, the heart is the center of our universe. And there's the temple of anthropocosmic man in Luxor, Egypt, which is a perfect mathematical representation of the human body. And what they say is that the temple shows the macrocosm of the human body, which is, the microcosm of the human body, which is the macrocosm of the universe. And that in and of itself is holographic. It goes on infinitely in and infinitely out. So in shamanism and ancient Egyptian thought, the sun that is in the center of us, which is the giver of life, is the center of our being. And the sun of our heart is connected to the sun in the middle of our solar system, which is connected to a bigger sun, to a bigger sun, to a bigger sun, all the way back to source. And if you think about the sun, it gives its love, its energy, unconditionally. And if you think about spirit and matter, the sun is hydrogen and helium, the 2 highest vibrations in the periodic table of elements, is there giving its energy freely and unconditionally. And without it doing that, life as we know it would not exist. And of course, you have Mother Earth nurturing and holding the space so that the sun can act upon it. And the 2 male-female polarities, if you want to call them that, are working together. And we have this beautiful existence that comes in between them. And you guys have probably heard this, but there's a wonderful saying by Hafez I love. He says, even after all this time, the sun never once says to the earth, "You owe me." Look what happens with a love like that. It lights up the whole sky. I love that one. It hangs it. So, in the end, it's all about the love. And with love and being truly loving unconditionally comes vulnerability. And there's the danger, and for lack of better words, there's the fear of that, of being vulnerable, because you know, in the end, when you break it down, fear is contraction and love is expansion. I mean, that really gets to the core of it, as far as I'm concerned.
Fear
And
is
of course,
expansion and love is contraction. Love is
Sorry,
expansion.
fear is contraction and love is expansion.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to birth and beyond. You even look at little organisms or something like that, a sea anemone or something, and it's out there, flowing outward, and you go and you touch it, and what does it do? Pulls back in, right?
Mm.
And if we feel threatened in any way on any level, what do? We armor up, right? And we shut down and armor up and protect ourselves. I mean, it's a very deep, for me, deep truth. So the more loving you become, the more expansive you become. But being that loving unconditionally, you have to be willing to be vulnerable.
Mhm.
Anyway,
Yeah, that really resonates with our teachings as well. The sun is the living being, the God in the Bible, the Brahma of the Hindu scripts.
Yep.
And then you go through the 9 freedoms because it gives us. Because I think from a lot of Buddhist teachings, you think that you ascend like the Buddha did, and then it's straight back to God. It's over. You've done it. Well done. But then we discover that, like you say, the sun is still serving. The sun is a more evolved being than us. Doesn't end there. You go to so after enlightenment, cosmic consciousness, ascension, then you go interplanetary existence, Saturnian existence, and then solar existence. And then that's just the 9 freedoms. And then afterwards you incarnate as planets, suns, yourselves, galaxy. The galaxy is a living being, billions and billions of lives more evolved than us. And eventually, one day you go back to God, but it's a long old road.
Oh yeah. To me, it's infinite. It never ends. And when you reach a new level of awareness, you open up a whole new set of problems that are more complicated. And if you mess up, the consequences are greater because you know better.
Yeah. But every day you get the lessons that you haven't learned yet. You get
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, let's just get back to ascension here. What we're trying to do every episode on to focus on one thing. So, little section from the 9 freedoms. Ascension. This is freedom from the cycle of reincarnation. It ties in with what you said about transcendence, because you've transcended, you've learned all the lessons here. And Dr. King says that we're here to learn one thing, and that's the control over matter, which in our terms means raising Kundalini. Once you can do that consciously, then you can leave the cycle of Earth, which is Kundalini is from the Mother Earth as well. And this is Kundalini, everything's Kundalini. So,
right.
So this is the freedom from the cycle of reincarnation, also known as the wheel of rebirth, and could therefore be described as the state of immortality. An ascended master may change his or her body from time to time, but would do so consciously without going through old age or childhood. So it's reincarnation, which is unconscious, versus conscious incarnations, which we have to keep doing. And they would, it appears, not have to do this anything like as often as we do. The ascended master, Saint Guling, who introduces each of the freedoms, has been in the same physical body for some 2,000 years. To attain this freedom, the master has to not only have experienced cosmic consciousness, but be able to enter this state at will, which we are told is very much more demanding. Ascension can be gained by the average person in one life. It may take lives of sustained spiritual effort, but nevertheless, however distant it may seem, it is, Mars Sector 6 informs us, the birthright of us all to one day reach this mighty spiritual goal. So what's your next step on the road to ascension?
Well, I like the last few of my books have been writing themselves. And I like to think of myself as a hollow bone, as one of the great Native American shamans, Fool's Crow, said, he was a great healer. And he said, I am a hollow bone. And whenever I do anything that has any great relevance, I really don't think it's me at all. I think it comes through me, and it's being open. And the more I move along, the more I progress and the more awareness I get. Now, if I never touched any plant medicines ever again, I'd be fine if I never did anything ever again in my life. But my mentors are passing on, and they've handed the torch to me. And there was the old thing in the Godfather, I think the second or even the third one with Al Pacino, they're the Godfather, and he's almost has all this legitimate business and everything, you know? Exactly, just what I thought I was done. They pulled me back in. And that's what's happened to me. And because all of my mentors are passing and I'm getting older, so I think it's important to carry the torch. And as I mentioned earlier, this is not for everybody at all. But I think with the darkness and the chaos in the world right now, medicine is needed now more than ever. And this happens to be my path. I work with people without plants. I counsel people. I help. I know how to work through the trauma, because in the end, it's about shadow work. And of course, the other thing I've learned over time is that we're all mirrors of each other, both good and bad. I mean, right now, we three are having this discussion because there's an aspect within ourselves that reflects each other. I have my path, you guys have your path. Maybe it's different in this way and that way, but in the end, as the cliche goes, all paths lead to Rome. We're really on the same path. We're seekers of truth. We're seekers of becoming enlightened and more aware. And we're very much looking to be of service as much as possible as we can. So, we could say in one respect, we're being selfish, because when we're helping each other, we're helping ourselves.
Yes. Yeah. Enlightened self-service. Yeah.
So, I always see that even with people who I see are really troubled or not with it or not being good, doing bad things. It's just that to me, they're just more in the dark. They just don't know any better. And one of the things in shamanism is really no such thing as sort of good and evil and light and dark. It's degrees of awareness. If you have a higher awareness, you're not going to be doing all these dark, bad things to yourself and other people. And, when you're traumatized, it's because you have been traumatized. So for me, it's about going into the dark places. And I tell people when I work with them, and I mean this, and I've been tested on this, I'll go absolutely anywhere in the dark with anybody. And I'll be there and I'll hold the space for them and help them to get through whatever particular trauma it might be. And the results are amazing. I've had breakthroughs with people who had severe domestic abuse, Vietnam veterans, big breakthroughs. And, and then they're thanking me. Oh my God, I've been carrying this all my life, blah, blah. And I'll go, well, that's great. Thank you. I appreciate that. But realize that it's not me. I'm helping. I might be pointing in the direction, but you're doing the work. It's not me. I'm not, it's bigger than me. So I like to just let it flow through me. And it's part of what happens when I'm writing, when it's really flowing. Suddenly 3 hours have gone by and I have 4 pages and I'm like, whoa, where did that come from? And then I have a wonderful experience where I'll look at something 6 months later and I'll be like, wow, this is really brilliant. Who wrote that? It wasn't me. This is really good. Right? So, we have to get out of our own way. And, there's all this stuff about kill your ego and all that. And I don't believe any of that. And in my opinion, you don't kill your ego. You give it a new job. Or I always like to say you kill your egos. It's plural. And I'm always telling people in the end, I'm a cast of thousands, and I got to acknowledge them all because I've created them for whatever reasons, whether I was traumatized or this or that, however they came about. They're looking for love just like we are. And those are sort of inner reflections of what's going on around us. And I always like to tell people, if you want to know where your shadow lies, just look at the people around you in your life and the ones that drive you crazy that you want to wring their neck. That's your shadow. So some important work to be mined in the darkness. We all need to face the dragon and save the maiden. And get the babe and the gold and the gems, or on a feminine possession, female possession, face the dragon and save the dude.
There we go.
Yeah, I don't want to leave anybody out.
That's a brilliant answer, Mateo. Thanks so much. Yeah, it comes down to service because you've had all these experiences. You've healed yourself. Maybe you had all that trauma because you're in a better position to understand and help people. Because if you hadn't walked that road, you wouldn't know what it felt like. So.
Absolutely. One of the definitions of shamanisms or shamans is the wounded healer. And when you may have an issue and you may, people around you have that issue, and you find yourself judging them. And then you realize that, oh my God, that's inside of me. And then you resolve it with yourself. And then where you used to be judgmental, you have compassion and understanding. And you can be there for people because you suddenly realize, dear, but for the grace of God, or that was me 10 or 20 years ago, or last week maybe. Because, even when you figure it out, so to speak, I always tell people that you'll still get tested. You think, oh, I resolved that. And all of a sudden somebody pops up in your life when you find yourself going back to that old survival pattern. And you catch yourself. And in my experience and opinion, the more that happens, the more you catch yourself, the more you become aware, the more you develop what I like to call witness consciousness. Or I like to say inside of me or anybody else, mommy or daddy's home. Okay, all you little buggers, quit acting up, go to your room. I love you, but I'm not going to hear your whining, go to your room, because that's not what it's all about. And I think the more you do that, the more you develop awareness and presence. And when you're present and you're truly in the moment, then you're not worried about what happened last week or what might happen next week or this or that or all these things that the monkey mind does to try to distract you. You are there and you're fully aware, present in the moment, because in the end, the moment is all we really have. Whatever's in the past is in the past. There's a great expression. The past is history. The future is a mystery. And right now is a gift. That's why it's called the present. I love that. That's a good one.
Yeah.
So, well.
There's a great quote from the master as well about ignorance is the only crime upon this earth. And when you unpack it and you really think on that, then that's all there is. Everything is ignorance, because.
That's right. That ties in with what I said about the degrees of darkness and light and awareness. It's the same thing. Absolutely. Yeah. People don't ultimately want to be bad. They got that way for a reason, because they don't know any better. And of course, we're all carrying generational trauma that can go back multiple generations. And I like to think, okay, the buck stops here, right? We got to own it and pay attention to it.
It made me think also about something about the rise of Kundalini. As you get more power, you get more responsibility. You're tested on every point. The first chakra to be awakened is the sex chakra. And if you have any proclivities, or you become an adept at sex or an adept at violence, so it's very important that you, before you're given those powers, that you'll be given the power to destroy yourself first. Is that right, Deborah? Is that some?
Yeah, there's a classic thing, isn't there, that if you do force, so we're back to Kundalini Yoga, if you do force it and you haven't dealt with the issues in the lower chakras, you actually force those issues up to the higher chakras, and then you're causing yourself all sorts of problems. And there's a classic story of an adept that was actually a great metaphysician, and he pushed it because he wanted to get to the higher states, and he ended up in a wheelchair. He lost all of his feeling from the solar plexus down, because he'd forced the energy up too quickly. And I can't remember the chapter and verse of it, but it was very sobering thought for me. And so I'm going to go all around the houses and serve everybody as much as I can. And then I'm going to think about the sun and the earth as an example setter of the way to do it. And as you said, Mateo, they are in service 24/7, 365, without any conditions at all. And and literally, I've got to, without them, I wouldn't have my journey. So, yeah, they are my example. Service and gratitude, which is basically what you've been saying all along, Mateo, and and
it takes
I'm
the
totally
pressure off
on
too,
that.
doesn't it? When you don't, because we're all worried about our own. If we're worried about our own enlightenment, you said, Mateo, that if somebody says they're enlightened, run a mile away from them.
Yeah. Heard that one, huh? I get, as my old Irish friend used to say, sometimes I get my knickers in a knot because there's all what I call guruitis.
Yeah.
And all these, they go around with the beads and all this, and they're playing the part. And another friend of mine told me the other day, instead of shamans, they're showmen. And I kind of like that because in the end, the more you do grow, in my experience, you really need to embrace humility and realize that it really is all bigger than us. And when you sort of give yourself over and tied in with the gratitude and service is acceptance. If something happens, then you accept it and you wait to see it, because ultimately, if you wait long enough, you'll see the bigger lesson or the bigger picture. There's a reason why it happened. I always make the joke, if I'm rushing to get somewhere and I get delayed in traffic and I get there late, it's because the universe made me delayed so I didn't get hit by a Mack truck. It all works out. You just have to have the patience and the acceptance of what comes for you, and know when you're in service that the bigger forces are moving you, and you're willingly giving yourself up as a tool, to do
A lot of the New Age teachings can seem a bit selfish, aren't they? Or even the old school ones. You used to go into a cave and meditate, go into go up there and, okay, some of them were doing it with, I'm gonna become an enlightened being so that I can help humanity. But a lot of them is just, get me mine, let me be enlightened. I want to, and a lot of the New Age stuff with just forget it. You can go through, people think their whole life is to get a peaceful mind, find peace, for me, just for my benefit, you see. And we're told that's not the way. In fact, there's a good quote in the Nine Freedoms, Sector 6 says, in the third freedom, "This declaration do I throw into every mental realm. I would inform those aspirants who, in total disregard of human needs, retreat into the wilderness. Come you hence, for you are fools."
Nice. Yeah. It's hard. It was hard. It's been hard for me all along to do things for myself. And when I started doing it, things started opening up. And what I'm always telling people all the time is that if you can't love yourself, how in the heck can you love anybody else? Right?
Yeah, you
So
got to do some work on yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. To me, like, I went through a thing a while back where I bought myself a new bed and I was beating myself up. Well, I needed a bed, but I'm beating myself up. Like, why are you spending this money on a bed? And blah, 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 blah. And then I said, because you deserve it. Good bed. Right? And I bought the bed. And it was a good thing. I'm sleeping better. So, there's a beauty in simplicity.
Yes. Is there other things, Deborah, we had to cover in the...
No, but I did have another little thought as I was listening in there. And it's about living in the moment and to be grateful for every experience. And Dr. King said, it's sometimes very difficult to be grateful for every experience, because if you fell over and you broke your ankle, I haven't heard very many people going, "Oh, thank you for that," and being grateful. He said, but they're wrong. They should be grateful because they needed to do that, even if it was the lesson that they are careless with their body and they need to take care of it. The lesson is there. And you were saying you were caught in traffic because you might have got run over or been in a bad accident. It's always, there is always a reason, and we can't fathom it. And the best thing to do is just that acceptance that you've given and that gratitude that you're being given the chance to evolve on this beautiful planet that is showing unconditional love in conjunction with the sun. So we go back to karma yoga, and that's like, we're all in this together and we help each other and we'll all get through, or as many as possible.
Yeah. And the ones that mess up will just go back and try again.
You got it. Another good quote from Dr. King is that karma is pressure, which is a really great quote. And we're talking about karma yoga. I was speaking to, or I heard one mystic teacher. He said that when he had a car crash in a car park, slow speed. He bumped into another car, and he was very grateful, because karma is pressure. So he released a bit of pressure there, because obviously at that time he was due for maybe a car accident. So instead of a high speed car accident, and I think there was another story about the Lord Babaji. He set fire to someone on a mountain. Do you remember that story, Deborah? Yeah, because the man was due to die from fire at that time. But he's, when you're a master like that of Lord Babaji's level, you can see karma coming, and so he burned him and then healed him, and he didn't have to die, which was nice.
Well, there's a class, isn't there? Also, if you're in a team effort, the master can take the karma for one of the teams so that the mission is taken. And so then we've got the classic of coming down off of a mountain, and it was told that one of the team members was going to have a really bad accident, which would have put the whole team at risk of not getting down. And so the king took the karma, so put his hip out or some such and so in a lot of pain, but everybody got down okay. So I mean, that really is taking one for the team, isn't it? But you've really got to work together, and
maybe that's what Mateo did on his trip. He took his knee out of joint just to.
Yeah, that's right. You were there doing it for them. It could have been powerless for them if you hadn't taken that, maybe.
No, well, and I had to learn to accept help from other people, which I was always helping people and never would ask for help. So there was a big lesson in that, and my friends made sure I knew it.
So you've never, you would run a mile from anyone if you had a good legs, from anyone who was enlightened. But have you ever personally met an enlightened soul?
I would say degrees of enlightenment, people will tell me, "Oh, you're enlightened," and I'm like, "Don't say that. I'm not comfortable with that at all. It never ends. I don't like to think of myself in those terms at all. I don't like to think of hierarchies." So I've certainly met people, I would say, who are highly advanced. And the word enlightened. I mean, I'm a wordsmith, right? So maybe they're lighter than they were 10 years ago and all that.
Yeah.
But my greatest experiences in spirit have been internal. I mean, that three of us are now having this wonderful chat. I could suddenly have a divine intervention, and God could be coming right through me, and I could be in divine rapture. Nobody else would know it except me. It's very personal, and it's the expression I find myself using a lot is radical subjectivity, because it's all subjective. We all have different histories, and we're all on our own paths in different ways, all heading home, so to speak. But there's that thing. So I can recognize somebody who has more knowledge, and maybe they're more enlightened, so to speak. But I don't like to think of anybody. And when I say that about if somebody says they're enlightened and run the other direction, because they're telling you and they're saying they're enlightened, which means they're probably not. Because the more enlightened somebody is, the more humble they are. And they're not out there advertising, and they're not waving the flag or, I'm here to save you,
I never still tell people I'm enlightened.
Yeah. So, that's why I always say that, because I run across it a lot. And I think in some respects, maybe even more so as I'm getting older. So I don't want to be disrespectful for anybody, but I also don't want anybody to fall down the path of getting into the guru-itis thing and the self-made spiritual leaders, blah, 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 blah. That just doesn't fly with me at all.
So what are you into now besides the Aetherius Society and besides all the stuff you're writing?
Well, I have a new book. It's going to be out in November. It's called I Am Consciousness Incarnate. And it's a in-depth examination of consciousness from all aspects, scientifically, this, that, theories. Then I get into plant consciousness, animal consciousness, up to cosmic consciousness. And I explain all of it because when you really delve into consciousness, you can't really define it. One of the lines in the book is that I am consciousness, but you can't define me because I am definition itself. Because we meet, our external perceptions come to us, where whatever is aware is inside of us takes all those impressions and then makes sense out of them for us. So I could see you walking down the street and be threatened and think you're going to shoot me and have all these things in my head about, oh my God, this person's going to do this and that. And it has no reality except in my mind. I could also see you walking down the street and go, wow, this person's very loving and, thoughtful. This is great. And I can create that in my mind. All the perceptions in the external world come to us, but the way we put them together is our own unique way of creating our reality, so to speak. So I'm very much into that. I'm pushing forward. I'm having a lot now. I'm getting approached a lot for radio and podcasts, almost weekly now. And of course, that translates into more books.
Mm.
And I always like to say, I stole this from another writer, but if I sell a lot of books, that's great. It's not about the money, but it's more people will get the message of what I have to share.
Yeah.
And it's, to me, the message is what's more important than anything else. And I got into it with a publicist years ago, but she was promoting me. And I'm like, don't promote me, promote the book, promote the word, promote what I have to say, promote what's coming through me, but not me. I'm not comfortable with that stuff at all. And I'm constantly have to sort of correct people if they start to put me too much on a pedestal. Like years ago when I was leading ceremonies back 16, 17 years ago, and they started sort of turning me into a guru, I bailed on it for years. Not me. Now I'm more direct and I'm like, look, I'm your spiritual brother, your spiritual sister. I've been around a little bit longer. I have some experience. I have some things to share. But in the end, I'm not any better than anybody else. And I've been teaching the writing for 35 years. If people want to call me a writing guru, I'm okay with that. And even then I tell them, yeah, okay, I'm a writing guru, but all that means is I have more words under my belt than you do. I have more experience, and I'm okay. You want to call me a writing guru? That's great. But I'm not a guru. I don't have my robes and, all that, the bees and the incense and all that stuff. I'm just another human being. And what I love to say these days, I grew up in here in the States, in Boston, in a neighborhood called Dorchester. And I say, I just say, look, I'm just a dirty white boy from Dorchester. That's all I am. I've had some experiences. Maybe I can help you learn some things, but it's you learn, you grow. It's you get the credit, not me. I'm really adamant about that. But I have to be careful. I was on a show one time and the guy called me a shaman and I kind of went off on him, and then I was apologizing to him. And then I realized that if I make too much of a stink about it, then I'm calling attention to it. So I just kind of let it ride and call me whatever you want. Call me late for dinner. Call me this, call me that. Hey, you with the clothes on, whatever you want. That's fine. I don't care.
So can people go with, are you available for are you running retreats? Can people, if they've connected with you in this show, can they?
Yeah. I don't know.
Is there a place, how should they get hold of you?
Yeah. My website, all anybody has to do is Google my name. And the first thing that comes up is my website.
Okay. Well, we'll put it in the show notes. What is it again? Just to say.
MattPallamary.com, MattPalla, M as in Mary, ARY.com.
Okay.
And all my other podcasts.
Retreats, everything.
Under media, I have podcasts, radio, TV shows. I have audio. I have video.
I've seen it's a big site. That's quite an archive you have.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you. Much appreciated. Yeah, they can find out more about me, and then there's a landing page there. So there's a contact thing, and if they fill out the contact, it'll email me, and they can find me that way.
Okay. Great. Well, this is a beautiful note to end on, I think, unless you have anything else, Deborah, we missed.
No, I really appreciate your time and having me on the show. Blessings to you both. great energy, great questions. Even though we're on slightly different paths, we're really on the same path. All paths
Exactly.
lead to Rome. It's all about the heart. So as a lady friend of mine used to say, love, love, love. I think that's a good note to end on.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Thank you for having me. And I will post this when it comes out on all over social media and all that.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
We'll help each other out.
All right, Mateo.
Hey, bless you, brother. Thank you,
Take care.
Deborah, for all your good work too.
Thank you.
See you further down the road.
You got it.
Bye.